Don't look now, but Tennessee's recruiting class for 2025 could be one of the best in the country. I'll tell you why and who needs to jump in the boat in order for that to happen here on a Tuesday at Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. I am Eric Kane. Thank you so much for being here and making us a part of your morning routine, your first listen, your first watch each and every day. Couldn't do it without you everydayers. And segment number 3 of today's show, I'm going to answer questions from everydayers from the mailbag portion of the show. So that's coming up in segment number 3. What the media got right and what the media got wrong. Reaction to a Jesse Simon piece over at On 3 from following SEC Media Days in Dallas last week. A lot of good stuff in there, and I'll tell you what I agree with and what I disagree with on what he agrees with and disagrees with from the media at SEC Media Days. And then a matter of a second, tons of recruiting buzz happening right now for the University of Tennessee. Who's going to be on campus this weekend, and how good can this class be? Tons of recruiting talk here in segment number 1. Big shout out to FanDuel Sportsbook for making every moment more. Go to FanDuel.com where you get a free bonus or boost daily here in the summer months for all existing customers. Big shout out to FanDuel for making us a priority and a part of Locked On Vols. Again, you can watch us, listen to us, download us, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, absolutely free. And you're going to need this every single morning during football season, with fall camp happening a week from tomorrow is when practice starts. Actually, a week from today is when practice starts. So go ahead and have this bookmarked on your morning routine. So tons of recruiting buzz for the University of Tennessee. We discussed Christian Gass, who committed to the University of Tennessee over this past weekend. Now Tennessee sitting 12th in the country, 6th in the SEC, and Christian Gass had a chance to really kind of dive in and watch his huddle tape, his highlight tape, and versatility comes to mind for Christian Gass. Nice frame on him, obviously. He's about 6'1", 6'2.5" or so, and about 6'2.5", 220, 225 pounds. And he can come off the edge and rush as an edge rusher. He can go, play back in space and be outside of the box. He can play inside of the box as well. And I think as he continues to grow and develop in a collegiate strength and conditioning program, they'll kind of see exactly where he best fits in the defense down the line. But athlete, runs the alley well, packs a punch, comes downhill, leverage, plays with a lot of leverage, and he collisions and runs with receivers well down the field. So I'm intrigued after watching some of the tape on Christian Gass. I think this is going to be a really, really good get for Tennessee when it's all said and done. But who could be next? Of course, Christian Gass was this past Saturday. Travis Smith, the wide receiver, was last Saturday. Tennessee, again, 6th in the SEC, 12th in the nation. And we're coming up on the final weekend of July when things open back up for a couple of days. And Tennessee, along with tons of other programs around the country, will open the doors for, what hopes to be a very plentiful unofficial visit weekend, unofficial for the most part weekend. And really, really looking forward to seeing some of these guys that are going to be on Tennessee's campus. Before we get into some of those guys that Steve Wiltfong and Chad Simmons over at On 3 kind of highlight, there's another Saturday commitment announcement coming up at the end of this week. One that Tennessee feels like it's set in good position with for quite some time. In fact, if this one went against Tennessee, this would be a major upset in college football recruiting world, and that is safety Shady Hayward, a 4-star, a really, really talented player. And again, he's been linked to Tennessee for quite some time. He will make his commitment announcement coming up this Saturday, and that would be, if Tennessee does prevail, which we expect that to happen, that would be commit number 19 in the class, and we'll see what that kind of does in terms of the SEC movement. So another Saturday commitment coming up. Potentially, Tennessee could reel in its 3rd Saturday commitment in as many weeks. And whenever Shady Hayward, a really good-looking 4-star talented safety, will announce where he's going to go commits and play college football. But a couple of guys that are on flip watch, if you will, that Tennessee believes can do a nice job in trying to flip and get away from their current commitments and come over to Tennessee in the coming days or weeks or whatnot. DaSaahn Brame, tight end, who's committed to Oregon. Tennessee has been very much in this one for a long time now. In fact, prior to his commitment, it was a couple of weeks ago, really probably last month, he committed on a Saturday, and Tennessee was the favorite up until that Friday night. And then in the 12th hour, things changed, and DaSaahn Brame went ahead and committed to Oregon. But it honestly feels like, if you've been following this, that Tennessee's not lost any momentum, despite not being the pick of the commitment. I know that's kind of weird to say. It feels like Tennessee's not lost any type of momentum with DaSaahn Brame. And Tennessee loves Jack Van Dorselaer, loves the fact that he's been their first tight end, commit in this class. He's been in the boat for a long, long time. But numbers-wise, you got to play the numbers game, right? And with the movement of Emmanuel Koye over to the defensive line, you need another guy kind of in that room, right? Another scholarship guy in that room. So that was why Tennessee wanted to go out and add another tight end to pair with Jack Van Dorselaer in this class of 2025. And they quickly went to DaSaahn Brame and made him a priority. And Tennessee did a really, really good job there. Commits to Oregon in the final hour. But it feels like just the relationships and the talk and the buzz that, man, he's not lost a step with Tennessee. And in fact, there's been a new forecast, a new RPM over at On3 that has DaSaahn Brame flipping from Oregon over to Tennessee. And again, DaSaahn Brame is the number 4 tight end in the On3 rankings. This is what Brame said stands out about Tennessee. Definitely the coaching staff and the environment at Tennessee football. He said that to On3's Chad Simmons and Steve Wiltfong, in prior weeks. So that's one to look out for, in my opinion. Everybody's kind of feeling it on a national scale that this is one that's likely going to happen. If it does happen, I don't know, the time of the dates. I wouldn't expect it to be too far down the road, in my opinion, if this happens. But Tennessee's got a lot of momentum there with DaSaahn Brame. And then you look at some other guys who are very much in flip territory, in my opinion. Jadon Perlotte, who's been a Tennessee flip candidate for quite some time now. He's been one rumored to Tennessee for a little bit now, and he's one that's committed to Georgia, and he's one that a lot of the Bulldog folk believe is not going to be a part of the class. Take that for what it will. Maybe they went ahead and they wanted him, obviously had him, but then of course they signed some other ones, so they're okay with letting him go. But at this point in time, it's like, okay, well, that's fine. Tennessee will take him. He was a priority for the Bulldogs at one point in time, and he's certainly a priority for Tennessee. And make no mistake about it as well. I mean, with Tennessee getting Christian Gass, they beat Georgia straight up for him. And so there's a lot of these recruiting battles that Tennessee's not just coming runner-up. Tennessee's actually being the bride, but Tennessee's being the one that they pick in the end. And so, just because Jadon Perlotte might end up in Tennessee's class, and some folks from Georgia might say that, it's okay, he wasn't going to be in the class anyway, don't make a mistake about it. Tennessee's winning a lot of these, and they will certainly take Jadon Perlotte. So we'll see exactly. I think it's a matter of when, not if, in my opinion. And it's felt like this for quite some time. Then you've got the USC running back commit, Morris. I'm blanking on his first name right now. He's been a verbal commit to USC and the Trojans for a while now, dating back to the spring. He's one to watch, in my opinion, because Tennessee would love to add another running back in this class to pair with Baker. And Tennessee loves Baker in this class, but Tennessee really needs to add another running back to pair with him. And it feels like, according to the folks, the national recruiting guys over at On3 and Chad Simmons and the Fong Bongs, if you will, Morris, the USC commits, is one to watch in that regard as well. Some other names that are very much linked with Tennessee right now is Onis Konanbanny, 4-star cornerback. He's made a couple of different trips up to Tennessee, had an official visit back in the month of June, and there's already a prediction over at On3, favoring the Vols in the RPM, and he's one that's kind of been linked to Tennessee as well, and I think he's going to be making his commitment announcement sometime in the first few weeks of August. So a whole lot of buzz for Tennessee. And of course, I went all this way without even mentioning David Sanders. David Sanders, 5-star prospect, number 2 offensive tackle in the class, according to On3, number 6 overall prospect. Tennessee, Ohio State, Nebraska, those are the 3 teams. And, Austin Price, who covers, recruiting for VolQuest.com, and my colleague, he has never wavered on this. He's like where Tennessee's been the entire time, and he's not wavering up until the point of this podcast. So that's obviously one to watch, and he'll make his announcement, at least right now, August the 18th. Maybe that'll get moved up or something, but it'll be Tennessee, Ohio State, Nebraska's in that one as well. We'll see if he's on the road this weekend. Last I heard, it feels like he's not going to be anywhere, but we'll see if he's on the road this weekend at any of those 3 places. But yeah, I mean, Tennessee, I think this could be one of the best classes Josh Heupel's put together. You get a couple of those guys, you're propelling yourself into the top 5 of the SEC, and you're 100% inside the top 10, you're probably knocking on the door of a top 5 recruiting class. You're not going to get them all, right? You never get them all. But if you get a couple of those guys that I just mentioned right there in that segment number 1, you're sitting yourself in pretty good position. Tennessee will be hosting this weekend Jadon Perlotte, the linebacker commit for Georgia, but has been very much a flip candidate for Tennessee for quite some time. I believe the running back commit from USC, I got to look up his first name, I apologize, Morris, believe he's going to be on campus for Tennessee. Jordan McIntyre is going to be on campus for Tennessee, of course, the quarterback commit of this class. But watch for, Onis, the cornerback, Konanbanny, DaSaahn Brame, Shady Hayward. Those are some of the trending names regarding Tennessee football recruiting right now. And boy, this class could turn out to be a really, really good one. To add to the recent commits of Travis Smith, really talented wide receiver 2 weeks ago, and of course Christian Gass, the linebacker from this past weekend. And you just look up and down this commitment list for Tennessee. These are some names that are really, really good. Douglas Utu, interior offensive lineman, Marion Dye, an edge rusher, Travis Smith, as I mentioned, G-Mac, Ethan Utley, Jaden Lofton, who I think's got a really, really high upside, Rodarius Jackson, who's a fast riser at wide receiver, Nick Moore, who's a very good developmental player from Jefferson County, go Patriots, could be the center of the future. I've mentioned Jack Van Dorselaere, Anthony Ogmoro, an interior of the offensive lineman, trying to replenish a lot of what you're going to be losing after this football season. Sidney Walton, the safety, Justin Baker, the running back that I mentioned earlier, Dylan Lewis, Trey Poteet, Joe Kim Dotson, Charles House, Tyler Redmond. A good-looking class for the University of Tennessee, but it's going to get better. And for it to be, considered a top 10 class, knocking on the door of a top 5 class and inside the top 5 of the SEC, which is what I believe Tennessee will be in the next couple of weeks, it's going to have to get a handful of those guys that I just mentioned, and I do not believe Tennessee is going to have any issues doing just that. So a lot of positive vibes, a lot of positive momentum going around for Tennessee football right now on the recruiting trail. What the media got right, what the media got wrong. We'll touch on a column from Jesse Simonton over at On3. That's coming up next as we continue on here with a Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Want to see about our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. I love sports. I love sports so much. I never want them to stop. But the playoffs have wound down. We get fewer and fewer games as we're seeing right now in the summer months. Sports, they're not sporting like I want them to. But over at FanDuel Sportsbook, keeps the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime that I am in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers, not just new customers, not existing customers, everybody, okay? Every single body with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long, with a daily bonus or a daily boost every day during the summer over at FanDuel.com. So head on over to FanDuel.com. Download the app as well. Check it out. Safe, secure, easy to use. FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, it is America's #1 sports book. It's where you make every moment more. And of course, FanDuel, it's the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Hey, welcome back in your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. Mailbag questions, those answers coming up in segment number 3. Jesse Simonton over at On3, he posted a story that I thought was pretty interesting. What the media got right, what the media got wrong with the 2024 preseason SEC ballot and all SEC teams. There's a couple of things in here that I couldn't agree with more. He goes into talking about how, and I think I mentioned this on yesterday's show, that when you're voting on preseason all-SEC teams, the fact that you don't differentiate the tackles and the guards and the centers is ridiculous. There's no offensive tackle, offensive guard, center. There's just O-line, 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 O-line. I think that's very silly. Also, you don't differentiate the edge rushers, defenders, with the rest of the defensive line. You don't differentiate the linebackers or the outside linebackers, which could be those stand-up. And I understand a lot of that's pretty nitpicky because defenses is they're so versatile and they're multiple by design. So when you're trying to iron down a specific position, it's a little challenging. I get all that, but it's 2024. We need to differentiate what an edge rusher is compared to a defensive lineman. That would be James Pierce compared to an Amari Thomas. You know what I'm saying? Also, it's 2024, and there are 2 running back slots on the all-SEC teams, postseason and preseason. Like, what are we doing here? Who plays with 2 running backs anymore unless you're an option offense? Nobody. The fullbacks are extinct. Nobody, Big Ten still tries to trot a fullback out there every now and again. Most teams, Tennessee included, will just throw a tight end out there if they ever need one, H-back tight end. But why on earth are we still having 2 running backs on the all SEC teams? It makes no sense. And in the same contrast, only 2 receivers. Who plays with 2 receivers? Your base offense, who has an X and a Z out there? Nobody anymore. Nobody. It's 3 receivers, a tight end, and a running back. It's 11 personnel. That is the nature of the beast nowadays. And so the fact that we're still voting on preseason teams where there's 2 running back spots on the team and along with 2 receivers, that's just silly in my opinion. One of the first things I want to make note for over here on this article that Jesse Simonson wrote, and I said this on yesterday's show, he said, quote, "I would have had Tennessee and Missouri ahead of LSU." He goes on to say, not behind the Tigers from Baton Rouge. It's kind of nitpicking here a little bit because, of course, like we mentioned, LSU was picked to finish 5th in the league, whereas Missouri was 6th, Tennessee was 7th. Tennessee, you're laying in the weeds a little bit. That's fine. If you're Josh Heupel, that's fine. You don't maybe want the added pressures of being a top 5 team voted on ahead of the 2024 season. So I think Tennessee's in a good spot here. LSU should not be there. I understand if Missouri was there because of what you're bringing back and probably the best 1-2 combo quarterback wide receiver in the SEC and Luther Burden and Brady Cook. You lost Cody Schrader, I get all that, but you bring back the bulk of your team that won, 10, 11 games last year? Why is LSU up there? Had a Heisman Trophy winner, won 9 games last year. Has a first-round NFL draft pick in Harold Perkins on defense. Defense couldn't stop anything last year. I'm not sure why LSU is ranked higher than that of Tennessee and Missouri. How many LSU media were present at the SEC Media Days? I don't know. I wasn't there. It's one less vote for Tennessee in this order, if you will, because I wasn't there and I didn't vote. Because I would have voted Tennessee probably 6th, in my opinion, or 5th. 5th or 6th is where I would have voted Tennessee. Definitely wouldn't have been 7th. And LSU would have definitely not been ahead of Tennessee. That is for certain. Another thing that Jesse kind of chimes in on here, talking about Cooper Mays. He does say that he would have had Alabama center Parker Brailsford and Texas's Jake Majors over Tennessee's Cooper Mays, who made the first team. I know Brailsford, I believe, made the second team. I'm not sure about Jake Majors. I would assume those are the second and third team, quote-unquote, centers, whereas Cooper Mays, of course, was voted first team. He said that he would have had those 2 guys over Cooper Mays. But then he goes on to say, still, quote, still, Mays is an all-SEC player that is the centerpiece to making Josh Heupel's system hum. Then in parentheses, he says, go back and watch last season what happened when Tennessee had to play without its starting center. So that makes a whole lot of sense there. I'm fine with Cooper Mays being a first-team All-SEC player because he's about to be a 4-year starter. And again, like Jesse points out right here, go back and look at Tennessee the last couple of years when they've had to play without its starting center and Cooper Mays and see kind of how all that was. On the offensive tackles, this is not Tennessee related. He said the fact that LSU tackle Emory Jones, a potential day 1, day 2 NFL draft pick, and Georgia tackle Ernest Green III, Alabama's Caden Proctor didn't sniff first team, speaks to the league's depth at tackle this fall. And I agree with that. The SEC is very, very deep with tackle, and it's Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell were the 2 starting tackles on the first team. Defensively, I'm going to read here this. I'm going to read this here quote word by word quote. There we go, from Jesse Simonson. Quote: defensively, the SEC always has the most defensive linemen and 12 earned votes among the 3 teams. Somehow, none of the dozen were Vols, which may have the deepest set of tackles. And he put in parentheses, Amari Thomas probably should have received a spot in the league this year. Amari Thomas, Omar Norman Lott, who had 5.5 sacks last year, Bryson Eason, who's going to be an NFL player, Elijah Simmons, David Hobbs, Jackson Moy. Those are all the defensive tackles. I just went 6 deep right there. I just went 3 defensive lines deep of defensive tackles right there for Tennessee. And I got news for you. All 6 of those DTs are going to play. They're all going to play this year for Tennessee. And so Jesse's right. None of the 12 that were voted on the 3 teams were Tennessee Volunteers, whereas Amari Thomas probably should have been. So the media would have gotten that wrong. I do like this note right here. He said, Walter Nolan as a first-team guy over Nick Scorton and Landon Jackson is among name recognition over previous production. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I will be honest with you. I covered Walter Nolan in high school when he played a senior year here at Powell and they won a state championship. Good player. I thought that there was going to be a huge adjustment to the college game and the Power 5 game, and I wasn't sure if Walter Nolan would adapt and be a good college player. He certainly needs to stay on the field more, don't get me wrong, but he's exceeded my expectations for sure, which you can take that for what it is. He's been a much better college player than I thought he would be. Now, the number one overall player in the country, he's been a disappointment, right? Because you're not having the stats and all that type of stuff, but his name still carries so much weight. And, of course, now he's at Ole Miss, and we'll see what happens there with him. But that's name recognition over production pick at its finest, and I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Finally, in his final thoughts little section over here, he talks about Tennessee's running back Dylan Sampson. Quote, "With that, it's hard to truly grab about 13 preseason All-SEC tailback picks, again, especially when 7 other tailbacks have already received honors, but I probably would have had Tennessee's Dylan Sampson somewhere on the ballot." That's all he says, and I would agree with that. Again, you've already got 7 guys recognized from the running back position across the SEC. Dylan Sampson's at least played an awful lot, and some of those guys haven't really even played. Dylan Sampson was, head number 3 in the three-headed monster. I recognize that, but he's produced, and he's been a vital role for Tennessee. Heck, he scored 4 touchdowns in the season opener against Virginia last year. We remember. I thought a lot of that was pretty unique and pretty interesting there from Jesse Simonton. So there's plenty of other stuff that he wrote in here, but those were some of the Vol tidbits and some of the other notes that I thought were pretty interesting. He mentions a couple of guys who are left off the ballot. Trey Wilson III for Florida. He mentions how he doesn't understand how he wasn't on there. Jackson Dart being left off at the quarterback position. However, quarterback is very deep for the SEC this year. Carson Beck got the first team nod. Quinn Ewers, second team nod, and Jalen Milroe, third team nod. Where are you going to put Jackson Dart? What about Brady Cook? I mean, even Florida's Graham Mertz, he had a fine season last year. A lot of good stuff over there at on3.com that Jesse Simonton wrote, but those were some of the tidbits about the Tennessee Volunteers. Hey, when we come back, we'll dive into your mailbag questions. You everydayers, every single week right here on Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. All right, we got a final segment left here of this Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols, and it's time for the mailbag edition of the show. Everydayers, appreciate you for sending in your questions as you do each and every week. We will start with the YouTube comments. Kevin says, which team on our schedule is a sleeper in your opinion? The sleeper team, in my opinion, and maybe this is just kind of coach talk and former football player, not that it scares me, but there's 2 that come to mind. I think everybody here is just assuming Tennessee's going to run over NC State. And I agree. I think Tennessee's going to win that football game. I think it'll be a challenge. And the fact that it's on a neutral site and Tennessee fans will certainly travel over there and it'll feel fine, that's a good thing. And I like the fact that that's Nico's second career start, first start away from Neyland Stadium this year to kind of ease him into what's coming up 2 weeks later against Oklahoma. But I think the fact that everybody's assuming Tennessee's just going to win that game, that scares me a little bit. And then in the same breath, and this is the first thing that kind of came to mind, not because I think they're going to be very good, because I don't think they're going to be very good, but on the road at Arkansas. Again, it's so easy to lose on the road in this league. Tennessee, Florida is a little bit different. I understand that, but look how bad Florida was last year. And Tennessee lost in the swamp. I understand Tennessee always loses in the swamp, but it's difficult to win on the road at times in this league. And so it's coming off a bye week, which should help Tennessee. But the Hogs, with Sam Pittman going to be coaching for his life this year, everybody's just assuming Tennessee's going to run through them. And I think, again, Tennessee will win that game for sure. I guess what I'm trying to say is don't assume anything with the Southeastern Conference football schedule unless you're like Georgia or Alabama that's in the middle of winning national championships. Which team is a bit overhyped? Overhyped? I hate to say it because they're very similar to what Tennessee is, but Oklahoma. Very similar to what Tennessee is. Again, I did a hit on the Sooner Scoop podcast, and I just kept talking about Tennessee, talking about Nico, and they're like, man, there's so many parallels with how Tennessee's coming up right now, and Tennessee's being viewed with how the Sooners are right now, and Jackson Arnold, who's the former 5-star quarterback. They got a little taste of the action last year, now is getting the keys to the Ferrari, right? But I would say Oklahoma would be that team in my opinion. I think Alabama is going to be very difficult at home. And I think, of course, Georgia's going to be very difficult. So that's the team I would say is overhyped. Bonus, will you be taking the over or the under for 3.5 wins for Vanderbilt? I'll take the over. I think it's incredibly hard to not win 4 games when you play 12 in this league. I understand it's the SEC. They might go over in conference play. I think it's incredibly difficult not to win some of those gimme games. Let's see here. I'm going to Google Vanderbilt's football schedule just to be sure here. They got Virginia Tech. They do get that at home, so that'll be tough. Alcorn State will be a victory. Georgia State better be a victory. And then you get into the heart of your SEC schedule. So we got 2 guaranteed victories for Vanderbilt right now. They play Ball State at home, which better be a victory, so that's 3 wins. You can't tell me they can't beat, one of, I don't know. This is a tough schedule. Can they maybe make things interesting against South Carolina? Can they maybe win that opener against Virginia Tech? Probably not. Can they make things interesting on the road at Auburn? I mean, those are your best chances. At home against South Carolina, on the road at Auburn, on the road at Kentucky, even though Kentucky should win that game. I'll take the over because, again, it is so incredibly tough to not win 4 games. I'll take the over because I think that they're going to get one of those with the guaranteed wins over Alcorn State, Georgia State, and Ball State. So good questions there. Really, really appreciate you sending those in. Let's go over to some of the ones I have bookmarked. Which quarterback will have the best career at UT? Nico Iamaleava, George McIntyre, or Brandon Faison? Of course, Faison is the 2026 5-star quarterback. He's not committed to Tennessee yet, but Tennessee's sitting in a very, very good position. I will say I'll go in that order because I know so much more about Nico. I've been around Nico. I've seen him work. I think he's got the highest upside for sure. I don't know as much about the 2026 quarterback, but I know he's supposed to be pretty good. I know more about GMAC. So I'll go in that order. Nico, GMAC, then Brandon, but that's very much TBD, as those 2 guys get, here to Tennessee and if, Faison ends up being at Tennessee. Let's go to Ed. Blank has the portal been good or bad for the Vols football program? Portal's been great for Tennessee. Let's look at this year's roster right now. Lance Hurd is going to be your starting left tackle. Keenan Peely is going to be your starting middle linebacker. Jermon McCoy is going to be one of the starting cornerbacks. Holden Stays is going to start at tight end. Hendon Hooker was a portal addition. Joe Milton was a portal addition. Been a lot of really, really good portal. Javante Payton in year 1 with all those touchdowns he caught. That was a portal addition. I know I'm forgetting some, so I do apologize. But the portal, Chase McGrath and the kicker last year were portal additions. So Tennessee has feasted very much on the portal, and I would say that Tennessee has certainly utilized the portal to its advantage for sure. So it's been very good. Let's go to Zach. Do you think a first-team All-SEC team could beat an NFL team? No, I do not. I love this conversation because, when I was coming up, when I was in college, when I was in high school, and Alabama was all the rave and everything, it's like, oh, Alabama could beat the Cleveland Browns. No, they couldn't. You know why? Because the Cleveland Browns are professional football players. That's not to say that the All-SEC team, those guys won't go on and have great NFL careers. I'm sure they will, but no, absolutely not. Take the worst team in the league. I don't take the Tennessee Titans are certainly not the worst team in the league, but take the Carolina Panthers. No, an All-SEC team could not beat the Carolina Panthers because the Carolina Panthers are grown men, veteran NFL players who are professionals. So absolutely not, in my opinion. Good question, though, because I think it's a good conversation. Let's go to Orange Kool-Aid. If you had to bet the farm on it, who will be Tennessee's best defensive back on this team? Jermon McCoy. Transfer portal edition, Jermon McCoy. I wholeheartedly believe Jermon McCoy is going to be a player for Tennessee coming over from Oregon State. Jared says, if they were to make a documentary about the 2014 baseball team, would now be the time to do it, or is that a story still unfolding? Redemption for the 2022 team, SEC regular season tournament champions, home run machines, College World Series champs, first title in program history. Should it be an SEC story to 30 for 30? I think the 30 for 30 angle would be really interesting, especially if you start from the 2022 season and go beyond. But the SEC story could take into account Vitello's era overall to this point. But right now, you definitely make the documentary because you just won the national championship, right? You're not waiting for it to finally happen. And I know some of the best, 30 for 30s or documentaries or movies are still waiting for it to happen, a la Billy Beane, the Oakland Athletics, Moneyball. Like, I get all that. But you just won the College World Series. So, like, how I would do this, I would do a 30 for 30, and it could say, what if I told you the best team ever to play the college sport of, to play the sport of college baseball didn't even win a national championship. And that just shows all the 2022 stuff. And then you follow that 2022 team to 2023, and it was a disaster. They were 5-10 in SEC play, but then they flipped the switch. That Vanderbilt game with Dylan Dreiling, Kavaris Sear solo home runs to tie it up, Griffin Merritt walk-off home run in the 10th inning to beat Vanderbilt. That's when the season changed, and they went to Omaha, snapped a 6-game losing streak in Omaha, first win in Omaha since 2001 or 2002, whatever it was. And then you go to this year when Tennessee was really, really good and then ended up running the table, winning the whole thing. I would 100% do it right now. Aaron says, prediction for Mizzou, since everybody seems to think that they're not a one-hit wonder. -7-5 yet again. More importantly, who is the secondary do you predict has the best season? Who in the secondary do you predict has the best season? Jamal McCoy. For Missouri, Missouri's schedule is so easy. Missouri's schedule is so easy. I'll say Missouri will go 9-3, be knocking on the door of the college football playoff. I'm not going to say they're a double-digit one season. I'm just not. But I'll say they'll go 9-3. And in the secondary for Tennessee, I'll say Jadon McCoy. Brett Morrow says, how many of these recruits does Tennessee gets? Jadon Perlotte, I believe Tennessee gets him. Shady Hayward, I believe Tennessee gets him. DaSaahn Brame, I believe Tennessee gets him when it's all said and done. David Sanders. Juan Gasson, I'm not very sure. Morris, the running back. I don't know yet right now. And then David Sanders. I think Tennessee gets the first three for sure. I like to think Tennessee would get David Sanders, but that's not done yet. Morris is not done yet, and Gasson certainly none of these are done yet. But I think there's still work to be done in terms of positioning, is what I'm trying to say. Of the 6 that you mentioned, I'll say Tennessee will get 4 of those. Whew, wouldn't that be good? Man, that'd be a strong finish to this class. I'll go 3 for sure. I think the over/under should be 3.5, and just for optimism, I'll say 4. Rob says, gotta hurry up here. Rob says, who will be the surprise player this year? Who has a breakout season this year for the football team? I think Dylan Sampson breaks out for sure because he's RB1, and I think Arian Carter breaks out in a huge way. Someone who could really boost their NFL draft potential, even if they are not draft eligible this year. Yeah, Dylan Sampson and Arian Carter would be my answer. He says, bonus question from last week, and I forgot to get this last week. What was your recruiting experience like coming from Jeff County? Was CN, Carson Newman, always the school being so close to you, or did you visit other schools? Extra bonus, what was your playing career stats? Not very good. I played middle linebacker, so I was right in the middle of the defense. So every team I played on and I started, I led the team in tackles because it's the nature of the beast. You're right in the middle of it, right? I was fine. Everybody's good in high school, right? Carson Newman, played special teams, and then I played defense my last 2 years. I like to think that I was really smart, and that's the reason I was out there on the field, because I knew where I was going to be. Those often make really unathletic players, but no, I mean, I love playing football, that's for sure. As far as the recruiting, the stats, I don't know. I had like 100 and some odd tackles in high school one season. I think my career best in one season at Carson Newman was like 95 tackles or something. I did have 2 interceptions my senior year at Carson Newman, so hey-o. The recruiting experience, I mean, I had a level head. I knew I was not Tennessee bound or, SEC bound. I knew I was very much just going to play for the love of the game. Carson Newman was in there for sure. Maryville College was. Emory and Henry was. I almost went and played at the University of Cumberland for sure. Lindsey Wilson, who ended up winning a national championship in the NAIA ranks when I was in college. That was a bummer. They really wanted me, and I didn't really give them that much attention. It came down to Carson Newman, not because it was close to home, but Carson Newman's facilities looked like a Division I program, whereas at the time, and I don't know how they are now, all the other schools that I was trying to go and play for, like Maryville, Cumberland's, which is NAIA, Maryville was D3, Emory and Henry was D3, very much look like NAIA, and actually Cumberland's had a really nice field, stadium, but very much looked like that level. Now Carson Newman's facilities were like Division I, and so that was really, really cool. And that was that drew my ire. My buddy Matthew says start bench cut Justin Worley, Nathan Peterman, Keller Chris. This one's easy in my opinion. While they were at Tennessee, that's probably the I don't know about the last two. Justin Worley would be the start while they're at Tennessee. Justin Worley would be the start. Nathan Peterman never did anything here at Tennessee, so I guess you would bench Keller Chris and cut Nathan Peterman because Nathan Peterman at Tennessee was a disaster. Overall, you start Nathan Peterman because he was always an NFL quarterback. Tennessee did him such an injustice starting him with a broken hand down in the swamp that one year, and he was never the same. Look what he did when he went and played for Pitt, and look, he's still hanging around the NFL right now. You start Nathan Peterman overall, you bench Justin Worley, and you cut Keller Chris. Keller Chris really didn't ever do anything here at the University of Tennessee. And the last question will go to Braden. What do you say to the people that think 2022 football team was just a flash in the pan? That's a good question, man. Like, what can you say? I think Tennessee's building and building and building and getting better and better, and I like where Tennessee is in terms of recruiting and the roster especially. I think they've got the right man on the job. I guess the best way to phrase that is this. Tennessee had a down year last year. I mean, it was the end of the world, right? Coming off what Tennessee did in 2022. It was the end of the world, right? I mean, it was such a bad year. And Tennessee still went to the Citrus Bowl and blanked its opponent and finished the year with a 9-4 record. So if that is a horrible year, then that's how I'd answer the question. Like, even the worst years now are 8-4 going to a bowl game, going to a really good bowl game like the Citrus Bowl. So if someone wants to say that 2022 was a flash in the pan, okay, I understand that point of view. I do. But for me to say that this program is not significantly better and going for the gold and continuing to get better and better and better and better every year, just point to last year when technically the win-loss record was worse than 2022, but your floor is so much higher. I hope that makes sense, right? I don't have much of a defense right now that says the 2022 wasn't a flash in the pan, except for just seeing how much better this program is under Josh Heupel. And it just goes to show you got a quarterback that can sling it. You got a quarterback that can unlock everything. You're going to win some games. And hopefully Tennessee's got that in Nico Iamaleava. Question number 2 for Braden, last question on the show. Today, will the SEC championship game hold the same significance this year? Yes, it will, because a lot of times you'll be playing to get in. Well, no. Divisions are gone. Let me rephrase that. You will be playing for seeding, and you'll be playing for a first-round bye potentially. Yeah, and so absolutely, the SEC championship will mean a whole lot. Not necessarily punching your ticket to the playoffs, because if you're playing in the SEC championship game, you're already going to be in the field of play, right? You don't need to lose it, but you're already in the field of play. You'll be playing for seeding and be playing for a first-round bye or be playing for a home game. So, yeah, I think that's still going to hold a ton of weight. All right, guys, really, really do appreciate you guys for making Locked On Vols a part of your morning show, your morning routine. Make Locked On Vols your first listen each and every morning. Make Locked On SEC your second listen, your second watch as well. You can download us, watch us, subscribe to us, all that for free. We'll be back with everything big in the news in the world of Tennessee football, Tennessee recruiting, and all that on a Wednesday show. Plus, Josh Ward will join the show tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.